Hello and welcome to this audio commentary for Fred McGubgub's The Pop Show. I'm Stephen Broomer of Art and Trash. Fred McGubgub is a remarkable figure in the history of mid-century media, a unique product of the emerging styles of countercultural and commercial art. His work was of the zeitgeist in 1960s America, combining the sardonic, absurdist, campy humor of his contemporaries in the underground with baldly commercial ambitions, occupying that strange duality, being both a mid-century ad man and an illustrator for the East Village Other. The Pop Show is, of all of McGubgub's films, the one that most embodies this dichotomy. It's a comedy of contemporary vision that anticipates an emerging style of advertising and television that followed in the radio dial tuning path of Arthur Lipsett. Formally radical, willfully abrasive, too cool to deny. Like Lipsett, McGubgub pursues a violent staccato style, but while Lipsett's films served as comic jeremiads on a world exhausted by insatiable consumerism, McGubgub's work here is limited in its criticality towards the consumer. On the contrary, it's affiliated consumerism. In The Pop Show, commercial images are driven by fashionability, adaptability, the iconography of 20th century culture, an iconography that is readily recapitulated by the amateur, a position occupied in later years by fan art. It is an iconography of stars, bands, and Hollywood's imaginary characters and creatures. The collusion of celebrity and consumption is cheerful, garish, tabloid, and trivial. Much of what McGubgub is doing here as an editor involves a punctuated flow of photographic images, both staged and found, alongside roughly hand-drawn, naive riffs on the print advertisement, offered in the artist's distinctive style, one that he had practiced in the pages of underground magazines, but also in high-profile ad campaigns, like a Beechnut Lifesavers television ad in this same year, 1966. The stylistic parallels to Lipsett, it must also be said, are a matter of definite influence. Only a few years earlier, McGubgub's colleague Pablo Ferro, with whom he ran the advertising agency Ferro, McGubgub and Schwartz, had imitated Lipsett's style as instructed by Stanley Kubrick for the credits to Dr. Strangelove. For Lipsett, these rhythms had come from the mechanical ragtime of the player piano. By the time that McGubgub makes The Pop Show, they've become the rhythms of a young but ubiquitous visual culture. It's a culture that demands assent and conformity, but that also performs nonconformity. At its witty best, this can be found in the ironic hiss of Mick Jagger. He can't be a man because he does not smoke the same cigarettes as me. There's little to distinguish The Pop Show from the commercial culture that it mirrors. Its black comedy, its self-awareness, its wit were all defining characteristics of intelligent mid-1960s marketing. That said, McGubgub's gallows humor can occasionally transgress in ways that the commercial could not. For example, in the central thread of The Pop Show, a fake advertisement performed by Gloria Steinem, who would become one of the leading voices of the second-wave feminist movement, here in the midst of her early fame as a new journalist, after A Bunny's Tale but before the founding of Miss. Steinem appears as the model of a sexy soda ad. First, she drinks Coca-Cola. Later, a variety of cleaning products, and by the end, she drinks a cigarette packet, each time licking her lips seductively. In the receding collage of McGubgub's editing, all things become interchangeable: stillness and movement, stasis and the dance, sugar and death. With gallows humor like this, is The Pop Show a righteous cultural critique? If it is, it's not sanctimonious. In fact, The Pop Show seems to stay its judgment from even the most vacuous of commercial images. It pursues rather than interrogates, and in doing so it discovers a giddy pleasure. McGubgub finds joy in these images, but he also aspires unironically towards them. Consider that any irony to be found in Andy Warhol's pop art may be in the eye of the beholder. His printmaking and painting was essentially corporate-friendly. It lacked hostility towards the mainstream. On the contrary, the Brillo box or Campbell's tomato soup can were common and ordinary consumer objects that Warhol and company made totemic, exaggerating and distorting scale and abundance in ways that may suggest critique, but that also stays critique. It might be said that Warhol, who features in the Pop Show holding a blank canvas onto which is animated a superhero, made sculptures and paintings that flatter the simple beauty of advertising. Magubgub is achieving something similar here, though his veneer of irony is undeniable. Warhol's surrealism may be an inbuilt critique of the triviality of his subjects, but the sheer density of Magubgub's montage makes the extraordinary events of fantastical film and television into something trivial and commonplace. The pop world of this Pop Show is one of ecstatic, inspired lunacy, dense with sights and driven to a beat. And its climax finds Magubgub's comedy at its blackest, when the words on screen assemble in a Mad Lib certain in its trivialization. A dance will be called the Vietnam. The comedy of the Pop Show is a loud and loutish chortling rather than the absence and detachment of Magubgub's contemporaries in the pop art movement. But even as it ruptures into infuriating critique, he uses the robust sounds of commercial pop and rock in a way that flatters this iconography, revealing and reinforcing the power of a new mainstream. The whole film is propelled by this sound and these rhythms. When Magubgub's images occasionally depart from the staged studio and the paper collage, he goes out into the street and finds chandeliers and tchotchkes and marquees and record jackets and underwear and shop signs that reflect that same energy. The neon glow of a contemporary world, as glossy as a magazine, radiating like the image of a tube TV, vibrating like a washing machine, bound like the panels of a comic book. Of all the slogans on display, it's this final slogan that best spells out the undercurrents of this pop world, its preoccupation with surface and experience. It's here that Magubgub gets the last word on his images. "That's all there is, roar. There ain't no more, amore."